Bob Randy.
Don't say Bob.
Hello and welcome. This group of characters, you got a herding cats over here. We're herding cats. Michael Finocchiaro on the Future of PLM podcast. I am very happy to be joined by my friends Brian and Rob and Patrick and Oleg are sort of the regulars, and we have our special new guest, Mr. Jonathan Scott. Since I've been on 2 of his webcasts, he decided to jump on mine. We appreciate you being here, Jonathan. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join.
Today we're going to have a BOMversation. Can't take credit for that word. I think that was a Rob word, wasn't it? Rob, you came up with the BOMversation thing. I think it was you. You there, Rob? Hello.
Yeah. He doesn't want to accept it.
Yep.
He's doing a low profile over there.
He's pleading autonomy.
All right. Well,
digital thread issue.
Digital thread issue. Got it. So let's go around. Like we were going to do these little cards, like with a headshot and with a funny, kind of like a Pokemon card for each person, and we didn't get around to it because the AI kind of freaked out on us for various reasons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of the panelists to give a very quick, like 1-minute bio, because we haven't actually done this on the webcast since like the first episode almost a year ago. So we'll just do a quick roundtable, and in the quick bio, we want years of experience with PLM, BOM, etc. Your perspective, like whether you're coming at it from a software developer point of view or from a systems integrator point of view, or somewhere in the middle. The tip customers, have you been in more retail or discrete or process, which industries, because as we'll talk about, the BOM sort of varies, and your perception of BOM varies by industry. And then sort of how close you've been to the solution, and anything else you want to throw in about in a BOMversation. So let's start with Oleg.
All right. Good morning, everyone. And again, thank you for having me here. So my experience mostly comes from PDM and PLM development, starting in construction industry, then moving to manufacturing, working for the SO system, working for Autodesk. And as long as I remember, it was about BOM. So again, if you at the airport or on the airplane, say BOM, because again, BOMversation can lead you. BOMversation can lead you to the wrong place, and it's a live experience. Okay,
like trump cards. Yeah, we know. So what's your favorite BOM? Hey, how about that? Why don't we say your favorite BOM? Is your favorite BOM the EBOM or the MBOM or the SBOM? What's your favorite BOM?
His favorite BOM is the OpenBOM.
I like when someone is doing my work. Thank you very much. I think I started as far as doing bill of materials for electrical boards back in construction work in AutoCAD, but that was in '90. That was interesting. One of the most challenging BOMs that I ever touched was back in the SO days, when it was for something that was called 7E7. How we say, the people that know. So it's a code name of Dreamliner when it was in the development. It was. So the wire harness BOMs, it's one of the craziest things that I've seen. And then working across different industries, mostly discrete with a lot of electronics and a lot of BOMs. And yes, OpenBOM is my favorite these days. So thank you.
Jonathan, how about you?
Yeah, let's see. So I've been doing this about 25 years or so. My background's really mechanical engineering and systems engineering, but I've been doing the PLM thing for quite a while. Let's see. I'm trying to remember all the questions on the intro, Michael, but I'll go with
industries.
Yeah, industries. Okay.
Industries for 5. Industry for 5, Bob.
I'll take that one. So I'll go with big stuff, right? Planes, trains, automobiles, ships, that kind of stuff. Industrial equipment, energy, those kinds of things. So not as much on the consumer goods and the I'll say smaller product side. So that's where I've spent a lot of my time consulting with folks on that. And in terms of proximity to the work, I think it's middle of the road, right? So I don't get my hands down in bills of material a lot these days, right? I spent some of that time when I was doing engineering, but now it's more consulting on the concepts down to how do you implement it in business processes. And favorite BOM, let's see. Boy, that was a tough one. I think I'll go with I'll go with some of the most interesting ones are legacy BOMs that I see coming from like aircraft industry, right? Where we've still got smart part numbers and the way that aerospace does things with installations and those kinds of things. Fascinating to watch those deep level BOMs and how people do it and what they still struggle with.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. Hey,
Yeah.
Brian, how about you? A little view from the fan, the ceiling fan.
Yeah. So over 40 years in this stuff. And when it comes to the industries that I've worked in, I'd say, well, it's been a whole slew of them: automotive, aerospace, some industrial, but recently, like the last, let's say 15 years, have been focused more on retail and consumer products, where variability, so the clothes that you're wearing is a product, a colorway, and then a size, right? And that could be manufactured in one location or another location or multiple locations where it gets, cut, make, trim, and then they fasten it and bag it in another location. So all those BOMs, the variability, where we found magic is that you can have just one BOM. And what you do is you make intelligent, we call it overloading the link. You make intelligent the traversal. And so it says traverse to here, the child, only if you're looking at this location, or only if you're looking at manufacturing, or only if you're looking at this ECO and the quantity shifts by 2, and so on and so forth. So we found that one BOM intelligently traversed would give an infinite number of variabilities as long as you make the link intelligent, right? So, so I'd say my favorite BOM is all of them.
But your industries, you also worked in retail, right? Which is another animal.
Yeah, retail. That's the thing where you got product size, colorway, creates like a shirt might be 40 different BOMs. And if you have multiple locations, which could have different materials from different sources, depending on which location, all being with the same garment, okay, especially outerwear, where you have the outer shell, the inner shell, and then you have things that get connected, and then you have packaging. All of these things can have so much diversity that if you can't make intelligent why you traverse from a parent to a child, if you can't make that, which we call overloading the link, if you can't make that smart, then the masses of products, you take an Adidas, 3 million products a year. Well, that's how many BOMs? It's 3 million, right?
Okay.
Instead, you should be able to shift that down to somewhere near 500,000 because there's variability on all of them. So, by the way, Mike, I do like as maintained BOMs. Those I consider like industrial to be really where the heart of evolution is, where it never stops. It just continues to evolve. And that goes back to one BOM for everything, right? Just make intelligent why you go to the child. If you don't go, it's because why you're going doesn't affect that specific child. Go to the next one, so on.
Okay. Patrick.
Oh, let's see. I noticed that Oleg is using what I think is a razor leaf coffee cup because I have a razor leaf coffee cup too.
I don't have a razor leaf coffee cup. Come
Well,
on,
no,
man.
you got to do it. You got to do it 4 times. If you do it 4 times, they give you a coffee cup and a shirt.
Yeah,
A shirt.
5 gets you a jacket.
Right.
I want the
Absolutely.
tie.
Right. So,
I've only done
5
2,
gets you a
man.
jacket. I don't know what a tie. I had 25 years getting a tie.
yeah, that was my deal with them. I said, no, there should be Saturday Night Live. 5 years you get a jacket, right? Or five times you get a jacket. Anyway, and they haven't brought me back for the 5th time. Therefore, apparently they're holding out on me back.
They want to get me on 4 times first. So.
Yeah.
No. In this group, I got to get Brian on next. I haven't had you on, Brian, so we got to get you on next.
You haven't been on.
So let's see. Experience-wise, I started my career in vision-guided robotics, and then shifted to PLM about 20 years in. So 20 years in robotics and 20 years in PLM. And my favorite BOM is probably the BOP, the bill of process, because I really come from the manufacturing background, where by which time really the BOM has kind of been resolved. By the time you get onto the factory floor, the the configurable BOM has already been configured. So when I moved into PLM world, I was an architect for 2 of the companies. In fact, I was architect at Delmia when it was still called 7E7. So in any event, you get into change management and you get into BOM management and that sort of thing. And I'll briefly say, and then move on, that so I teach a graduate management course called Product Lifecycle Management at Oakland University, which is near Detroit. And the last time this group met, we discussed the 737, right? And that's literally the conversation tonight. And what we're talking about today on Tuesday is literally the conversation that we're going to have on Thursday. I've never really figured out how to bring the BOM debate into my course, but the conversation we've had leading up to this, and then what I'm sure will come out of it, has actually given me the opportunity to do that. So thank you guys. You're doing my class planning for me. So
anytime. What
I
are you
hope
going to
the
give
check's
us?
in the
Maybe a
mail.
pen
Yeah,
or
is it
something?
check?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Invoices will be coming. I get it.
Mr. Plumber, the data plumber.
Yeah, well, actually, before I was a plumber, I was a bomber. Believe it or not. So,
You've recorded that. The CIA knows it. And you'll be seeing them posted outside.
He's not going to enter the United States for a couple of years.
Now we understand why you prefer to be plumber and not a bomber. That's the real problem.
So I've been bombing for around 25 years, and actually the thing I like about it so much is that the BOM is really the touch point between the people in the organization and the systems and the data and the information, because it's all, for me, it's all about communication and collaboration, and the BOM is where that happens. And so, yeah, my background has really been a lot like Jonathan's, anything kind of big and complicated, discrete manufacturing. And I think my favorite BOM, the service BOM, is a close contender because it's usually so artistic and beautiful. The illustrations of how you should be taking things apart. But actually, I love matrices BOMs or matrix BOMs, where you have all of the list of the parts down one side, and then the assemblies or the target vehicles or whatever it is across the top. And so which parts are going into which assembly? So is it for prototype builds, or is it something complex like an instrument panel, for example? And so I love that kind of thing. That's like
have you seen products that have the matrix BOM as a visible representation?
Meaning
software products, like you've got Dassault and you've got Siemens and you got PTC and you've got OpenBOM. I don't know who runs that, but have you ever seen a matrix?
It tends to happen in Excel. That's right.
Well, Excel. Okay.
It's like it lends itself.
PLM number 4.
Yeah. Yep. I got you.
So let's go.
Michael, what about you? Michael, what about you?
I've been doing this about 30 years. Those last 30 years here in Paris, and I'm from just about every industry, and not really from putting in place the BOMs, but making sure the systems that the BOMs are running on are performant, and the performance problems don't, when you do an expand from the root, you don't blow up the machine, which used to be a problem back in the day. And my favorite BOM, I don't know, I guess I'm going to say EBOM, because, I love manufacturing stuff, but I haven't, dealing with consumables and glue. I shouldn't be anywhere near glue. That's a bad thing. So I'm just going to stick with the.
As long as you don't have a bag with you, I think it's okay.
So maybe some people in our audience are not as BOM experts as we are. And Patrick, you being the professor that you are, maybe you can give us a professorial, but not too academic definition of what is a BOM, and then well, let me just set it up. So I'd like Patrick, he gives a definition of what is a BOM, and then maybe Jonathan, you can tell us what's inside a BOM, like what is the constituents, and then I'll do the next set of questions. Let's start with those two.
Sure. So let me say, professors are taught to speak in 90-minute increments, right? So sit back for
get a coffee. We're gonna be here for a while.
You can only inhale 4 times. If you inhale 4 times, that's the best.
Let's see. So what is a BOM? Well, what is which BOM, right? So are we talking the engineering BOM? Or are we talking the manufacturing BOM?
Just BOM, generic. without any
generic,
letter in
right?
front.
So it's a breakdown of all the parts in a product. I'll go back to my BOP comment. We design our products around the manufacturing facilities we have that can build them. So I think a lot of the BOM originates with the bill of process. What tools does my factory have? Because I can only build the things that my factory can build. If my factory is at General Motors, I can't build airplanes because I just don't have the tools for that. So, but in any event, but the engineering process begins with the EBOM, which is a structure of the high level parts in a BOM. Like I know I've got an engine, I know I've got seats, and I know I've got steering wheel. And then within the engine, I have pistons, and within the pistons, I have rings and all those sorts of things. And you guys are probably more experienced than me on that. I'll give one quick anecdote, and then we can move on. But I was working at a shipyard, and ships are full of pumps. This is the sort of ship that has an airport on top, and ships are just full of pumps. And in the design process, they can, when the designer chooses a pump, that either the pump or the motor or both, it just automatically comes with a coupling between the pump and the motor. Well, from a service perspective, the pumps and the motors last a long time, but the couplings don't. Yet the coupling never showed up on the engineering BOM because in the design process, he didn't have to think about it because he just pulled a pump out of a catalog, and the pump automatically came with a coupling. And who cares, right? It's not my problem. So I got the pump that I needed to do. So it's not only different views on the same data. There's data that does not appear, such as grease and glues and those sorts of things that Michael was talking about.
But grease is just underneath the Balkans. It's still there.
Say that again?
Sorry.
Oh. So I'll finish up with that. But I think the coupling issue that was a eye opener to me. It's not. There is data needed by the service people that's simply not ever in the engineering BOM. So there's some additional. What the engineering BOM says, I need a pump, but then the service people need to come in and say, yeah, but we know that the pump that you ordered out of that catalog does not include the coupling. So we're going to have to come back and add in the fact that there's a coupling.
So I'll jump in and pick up on what you asked me to talk about, the what's in the BOM, right? What are the constituents? And I think one of the challenges talking about that, Patrick led into this perfectly, right? By saying his favorite one is bill of process. Well, bill of process, that's a BOP, not a BOM. Come on, man. But I get your point. It's when we look at the strict definition, bill of materials, it's about the materials that make up the product. One of the things I think is challenging is that a lot of BOMs are multi-level. And so you start to question, well, how many levels do I go down to, and what is actually in that BOM? So your example there with, engineering, not having all the details of what's in that pump, starts to expose some of what's in there. So for sure, there are parts, right? Parts and sub-assemblies and that kind of thing. But then it gets controversial when you say, well, but did I go down to all of the constituent parts? Like if I bought something, do I get to all the little piece parts? And well, those came from raw materials. Those came from chemicals and compounds. Okay, so depending on who you're talking to, maybe we get our BOMs all the way down to compounds and constituent elements and things like that, or maybe we don't. But for sure, we've got those pieces. And the other constituent I'll say is the links, right? Brian was talking about this earlier, right at the very beginning, the relationships between that parent and whatever the children are, and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, et cetera, et cetera. So you got the relationships, and then you got the components. For sure, those are parts of the BOM, in my view. But I don't know, maybe somebody takes issue with that. That's what I got for you,
All right, thank you. That's a great answer. That's exactly what I wanted. Rob, maybe you could tell us why is this a religious thing? People are like, why are you doing a podcast about BOM? It's like the most impossible subject. Why is it that it's become sort of these, where's the religious lines being drawn here? Why is it so difficult?
I think a lot of it is entry point. It's where people come into the world of BOM and PLM and their foundational experiences, and they learn about, or they know what they know because of what they've been doing. And so when they so that forms their religion, if you like, around BOM. And so they have ways of thinking about how things, whether, like, for example, Patrick talked about starting with manufacturing, but actually I would say that, you know, it starts at the end, well, even before the engineering end. You go way back into, you know, marketing and thinking about, okay, what is the product we're going to make, and, you know, what kind of, how many variants does it have? Is it going to be engineered to order, configured to order? And so, you know, you go from left to right. But yeah, yeah, people have also system influences. So if you're an SAP person, you might believe that the you know, the BOM starts with the ERP BOM, and then everything else kind of feeds from that. Yeah, that's my take.
And Oleg, you've obviously built a product based on BOMs. Why is it that you found that knowledge graphs are the best way to represent those? Because I think there's also a debate on how best to put them. Up to now, we put them in these relational databases, and they've been a bit cumbersome. I mean, they still are there, and that's what most people are using. You took a different approach, and I'm thinking that that's because of the way people are actually using them and how they're actually structured. Is that correct?
Oh, well, that's a great question, and I actually want to start with what Brian said. He said it's BOM. It's a lot of different dependencies, and in many situations you want to traverse some of them, and you do not want to traverse some others. So, but thinking about this, the biggest thing that I would say, there is a visible part of BOM. And if you go, I bet money if you ask someone in university what is BOM, they will say, here's the Excel. That's I've seen it in so many places. So this is the most visible part of the BOM, like the simple Excel. Now, the most invisible part of the BOM is all those things that we discuss, and all dependencies. There are dependencies in the process, dependencies in materials, there are dependencies in cost, there are dependencies in maintenance. Like all these things together, they're really complex. Now, if you go to all this depth of the complexity and relationships, we understood after the many years of experience is the best way to model it is graph. And also the best way to query this is graph, because the needs and the capacity technological are there. But on the other side, we left it as simple as Excel. That's why the user interface is like simple Excel. So those are the two things. So answering your question, there is a need for complex data management there. On the other side, everyone to see it as simple as Excel.
And so, Brian, what is can you talk about you were talking already about relationships. So when you're taking the BOM and we're looking at all these different views of the BOM, how does that compile in terms of relationships, as you were trying to say earlier?
Well, see, that's the thing. I'm BOM agnostic, right? My belief is a parent to a child relationship is just like atoms in the human or in atmosphere, the relationship between a parent and a child is the core of BOM, right? I mean, in actuality, a bill of material is, once you go through all that, you list the materials. So a bill of material really is just a list of materials that are in the BOM and quantities associated thereof. But when you go to the BOM as it's structured, like what Oleg says, it's almost like a neural net, right? Where you go to one and you, a parent, and you shoot off to the child. And during that move, you should be able to gather content. You should be able to gather information as to why you're going to that child. Or, as I speak of before, overloading the links with information that says, don't go to that child. Why? Because what you're looking for is the MBOM. And that child doesn't exist because it's a purchase part, meaning the subassembly is purchased, which means we're telling you what's in the subassembly, but you don't need to go get it because you stop here. So, or you need to get grease or oil or something else. You wouldn't see that in the EBOM, but you see it in the MBOM, right? And like with the bill of labor or the bill of process, how that thing gets created, you might find, and I worked with a very large systems company out of Boston that needed to go from EBOM to MBOM. And the way we did it was, as you went into the EBOM, as you created the MBOM, it remembered as you get rid of things, like they used to put screws and nuts and bolts into baggies. And the baggies during the bill of labor would be at certain positions so that you could take them out. But from an engineering perspective, they were together because they held the board in place of the chassis. And there were, X of them. So we had to allow them to pull all the screws and the nuts and everything and put them in baggies. And what we did was we overloaded the link. We said, this child in this baggie used to be in the EBOM with this parent. So now if somebody went into the EBOM and did a change, it could find that screw and get rid of it or change it, right? Because we remembered where it came from as it went into the baggie. So what I'm saying is BOMs are purposeful, contextual. They determine based on who's going in, the human, the role, how they should present themselves. And in my mind, a BOM for a product should be one BOM meets all, and how you traverse to it is what makes it contextually accurate, right?
Thank you. That makes me want to wonder, because we've mentioned Excel a couple of times, and yet there are the big three solutions on the market. Then we have the startup ecosystem. Oleg represents part of that, but there's also Propel, Duro, who was just acquired by Altium. I mean, there's a whole ecosystem out there of these systems. Why are we still using Excel, Jonathan? Why is Excel still a thing? Is it user experience? Is it because the other ones suck? Is it because we just are too lazy? I don't know. I think that's another open debate, another one of the religious things, maybe. But
Yeah.
what's your take on it? Because you do a lot of interviewing, and I know you do a lot of consulting work. I'd really like your feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's what Oleg mentioned. It's about simplicity, right? So people trying to solve the problem, they've got a problem to solve. They don't wake up thinking, oh, I want a complex software solution to what I do every day. They, are trying to get the right parts to the shop floor or the right parts at the right workstation, whatever it might be. And everybody's got Excel, right? And Word's bad at it and PowerPoint's bad at it. So guess what? It's like, that's how they end up there. It's kind of how, PowerPoint ended up as the best change management tool. Same kind of problem, right? I can take pictures and write some text and they're on individual chunks. So Excel, I think, is the simplest tool for the job. And people, they struggle when they try to progress it to really solve the problem they need to solve. And that's when they run up against it and end up looking at PDM or PLM or something else, or even trying to code it. Because, like Brian was describing earlier, these links, these relationships are complex, and sometimes they traverse multiple levels, and you have trouble just getting it all in your head. How do these parts relate to each other? And then you can't fit it in Excel and you look for something different. But at the start, you're just thinking, it's a parent, it's a child, I need a quantity. And usually your CAD drawing, putting it in 2D, that was painful. So Excel was a good representation of what we used to have, and that's where people end up, I think.
And Rob, do you think where should people start if they're going to do this? Should they start with how many BOMs do I need, or do you start with the system? It's a sort of a chicken and egg problem, right?
No, you have to start with the business, and you have to start with what's the endeavor, what are people trying to do. So who's in the business, what information do they need, what's the product, and then from that you can start to build the data model. So that's the starting point, is this master product data model. So it's what information does each group of people need in order to do their job, and then you can start to figure out, okay, how does that information flow? Because I think one of the things that we've touched upon it, but you've got information in different BOMs. Yeah, so you might have EBOM, SBOM, and all the other BOMs in between. And how does that information get in there? Is it a cascade from left to right, or do you have concurrent engineering where someone creates the service BOM at the same time as the EBOM? How's that informed each other? And then how are those links maintained? Is there a register, a graph, or something that is saying, hold on a minute, this information is different? Or how do you know that, for example, there's a part in the MBOM that doesn't need to be in the EBOM, or the other way around? So I think if you can solve all of those ideas first by looking at what master product data you're going to use to run your business, then you can start figuring out how you're going to solve it from a technical perspective.
Thanks, Rob. I've got a couple questions already coming in from the audience, and I was going to throw one at Oleg because I think this is a good one for you, Oleg. You ready? You sitting down? All right. How tightly do we expect BOMs to be linked to system models like MBSE? Will the BOM eventually be derived from the system model rather than authored separately?
Oh, that's
good question, right?
That's the amazing one. Thank you, Michael, for throwing this.
Well, you said you had the most experience other than Brian, so
He did.
Yeah. So I think the question here, so you're trying to understand the relationships, are going to two places. The first is the business, is what Rob mentioned, because the way it related is dependent on your business process. So if your business process starts from the requirements, this is how they will be connected from the business process. If they are, like, I don't remember who said the favorite is the maintenance. If your business goes from maintenance perspective, you eventually will have to interlink it with additional pieces of information. But this way or another, system requirements and connections to these tools that helps you to identify and create and manage those requirements better will be tools that will interlink or intertwine all this network together and will be connected. So I don't think there is a one straightforward way how to connect them. What is important is the flexibility. I think Rob mentioned that we need to build a data model as we understand the requirements. So once you're building this data model, you will understand how interlink those pieces together, so the right data will show up in the right place, like we like to say, at the right time.
I think also, Jonathan, you touched on it, and I think that Brian and Patrick probably have experience there too, having looked at different industries. But it's also interesting to look at, say, process industries where they have a BOM, except they call it a recipe or a formula, right? And that is where Jonathan was saying you could go all the way down to the actual chemical reactions. That's what process industries do, which is interesting. And then you've got fashion with its own thing. The struggle that the big three have had is trying to get one size fits all, right? And I don't think nobody's been really, really successful at that, because there's always been a flex PLM or an Infor for process or whatever. Do you guys think that, I mean, Patrick, do you think that there is a way of doing an all-in solution does it all? Or do you think that these things are so specific that we're always going to have to be looking for point solutions in a lot of cases?
Yeah, I think it would be nice to have it all. We should have one ring to rule them all, but it's not realistic. There's a aphorism or a law, Conway's law, that says that the product that you build replicates the organizational structure which built it. So if you look at a Toyota versus a General Motors, you'll see that they are built in very different ways. And that's the difference in culture in the organization at Toyota versus the culture and organization at GM, or pick one, right? So, and then the BOM represents the product. I mean, the BOM is a textual representation of the product infrastructure, of the product structure. The product structure is a representation of the organizational structure. So without collapsing onto a single organizational structure, as a academic professor, I'd sit here and say that no, I don't think we can have one BOM to rule them all. I think it's going to be very individualized based on how the company was created.
So Patrick, I want to jump in for a second. So
I was actually going to go to you, Brian. That was my next one. So
I think that yeah, sure. I'll just sit over here on the balcony and go, hey, what are you guys doing? Having been at both consumer products, automotive and aerospace, and then retail, fashion, the area that I think complicates the delivery is, and I'll go back to the clothes that you're wearing, right? Each one of you are wearing a certain style, which is the product, a certain colorway, which of course is the color, and a certain size. And so how you model a thing that you're going to deliver to market, the SKU, the stock keeping unit, right? Where you get, it could be an airplane, 737 model, whatever, serial number X, right? Or it could be an automobile, which has a VIN, which represents a certain structure. So that's similar to what you classify as a SKU or stock keeping unit in retail. But the BOMs, I challenge anyone listening to show me how overloading the link won't work, period. I don't care who you are. I don't care what industry you're in.
My comment on that is
recipes and batches.
I don't see it as a technical issue. It's an organizational issue.
Right.
I mean,
right,
you would need to convince General Motors that they should operate like Boeing. How do you do that?
right. Or somebody that they respect. How about we do that? Right.
Yeah.
Whoever it is that has succeeded.
Yeah, how do you convince any company that they're wrong and somebody else is right? Because to get to one, you're going to have to convince everybody else that they are wrong and adopt what is right.
Well, you could be slightly wrong, or you could be slightly inefficient.
Yeah.
Not
You gotta talk
wrong.
money.
You don't
It's gotta
necessarily
be
have to
money.
say the word wrong, but less efficient than company X, right? Whatever that is.
Although change is, yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit going off onto a topic, but change is inefficient. It's difficult to change. Once you're
Of
through,
course.
you're better off. But the process of change is inefficient. And
Now, I wanna-
seems inefficient.
I want to separate something.
Sure.
I think, Brian, that you're saying, just to make sure I'm tracking it, because I hear what you're saying about the overloading the link part, right? But I think that's a technical answer to still getting the same result for the end user, which is somebody sees that BOM one way and somebody else sees it a different way, right? So there's still an EBOM and an MBOM. It's just technically it's one BOM. So that part I think is interesting, that it comes back to, Patrick, what you were saying about organizational differences. You know what? If your organization wasn't broken down into engineering and manufacturing, would you have an EBOM and an MBOM? I don't know, right?
Right.
You know, but maybe you would, because you still had those functions, even if you didn't have those organizations or departments in an org chart.
Right. You
But
still may need to add grease or fixtures.
Right.
And if you're talking about recipes, you have boil time or mix time, right? And those things become operational in the manufacturing floor, which are purely defined without action in the engineering world, right?
I think
'Cause
Rob
the
had his
recipe
hand up.
has not only chemicals, but also things that do things with the chemicals. Sorry, Rob.
I posted the other day about this, and we talked about, we are talking about EBOMs, MBOMs, all the other bombs, but actually, imagine if you had a Michael BOM or an Oleg BOM or a Jonathan BOM, where that was just the information you needed as an employee of the company to do your role, and you could see the things that it took you to do your day job. So that's one way of thinking about things, and so maybe you won't have a department BOM, the EBOM. If someone needs everything and needs to see everything, great, they've got it and they can roll it up and see the weight of the product or the total cost of the product. The other thing is, Michael, you mentioned can one system do it all, and in most companies, unless they're simple companies, you've got multiple systems in play and multiple ways of connecting those systems, and that, when you add in the stuff that Patrick's been talking about, the organizational differences, cultural differences, manufacturing differences, it's exponential in terms of the complexity. And that then comes back to a post I did the other day about what are the universal things that you can learn, around the idea of having visibility of the product data that you're going to be using for your business, versus all the way to the kind of unique way that you then execute it as an organization.
Thanks, Rob. Oleg had his hand up, and then I've got another segue.
Yes, I think what we are trying to resolve here is what I see in many organizations, and I'm not sure it should be resolved, because there are 4 pieces here, and they're all different, and we should not connect them together. They impacted each other. But if I will go from organization, on the top level, organization is thinking how to operate, and they need to send them, and they call it, we need to send this BOM and we need to synchronize that BOM. So that's something that can be very different in any organization. This is what I think, Patrick, you said, how to tell to Boeing to work like GM or vice versa. I mean, each organization, even 5 people, we see them, they have a very specific opinion how they want to work. You will not go in to change them. And this is what they will be trying to do. And then there is a specific industry aspect, because BOM for consumer goods or the BOM for process industry, in other words, a recipe of a cake will be different than the bill of materials for industrial machinery. And you want it or not, it will be different. That's something that we will need to acknowledge, and we will not be able to marry people that doing cakes with the people that doing machines. They just speak different language. And then we go with some specific foundational principles, because we said there is an item, an instance, an assembly, and you kind of can call them all the same, and they function in the BOMs with the very similar principles. And this is where the core technology, if you want to talk about core technology for BOM, is coming. And then the fourth level is the technology, which becomes very interesting, because in the past we managed one technology to use one technology to manage those BOMs, and then we said relational database are amazing and start using them. And then we said SQL and the relational database sucks because its performance is crazy. And then we moved to graphs. This is what OpenBOM does. And now we are saying, you know what? If we can represent everything as a language, because we can represent the BOM as a language, and this is the experiments that we do, then a language model can work to describe any BOM. So think about these four. They will not displace each other. We will still need to do something for specific company and specific industry and specific product and implementation. Yes, it will be simple. People would like to have it. And then we will use some technology. Most of our customers don't care about technology, but wait, if it works so fast, it's important.
Thanks, Oleg. That was a really great way of framing it. Actually, I was going to come back to you, Brian. I know you raised your hand. I wanted to ask, like, I think another thing that makes BOM such a touch point and so complicated is that they kind of concentrate all these things around configuration and change, which are very, very complex and very, very widely different, depending whether you're building an airplane or you're making Coca-Cola. So I don't know if that's where you were going to go with it. That's where I wanted to go with it, Brian.
I was going to go two places. Well, now that you asked that question, I still think that why you traverse to the child can be overloaded with content that says the effectivity date of this, right? So this gets into the change, effective because it's something that will create harm to humans, right? You may say that we need to do it now. I don't care how much you got left of that other thing. We're replacing it with this. So the effectivity
goes back to our
date is
737 debate.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But I liked what Oleg was saying regarding a language. When I originally designed or led the humans that designed the Flex PLM product, my original intent before PTC bought the company was to actually have different profiles for different industries. And one of the industries was RX, right? And if you read something of pharmaceutical, it can be a language which actually has intelligence within the language used, right? You've got verbs, nouns. The nouns are actual things. Like if you say, I'm going to take this ingredient, this chemical, that chemical points to a chemical, right? And my process is to do the following with it and then join it with something else and then do something else. And that becomes a recipe, right? A pharmaceutical recipe. And we would have done that had we stayed autonomous. We would have done that as a language, as Oleg is saying, because it'd be great. It's almost like a children's book, right? You're reading through and you want to click on the dinosaur and, oh my God, quick, shut the door. Don't scare the children. I'm telling you right now, don't do it. Right? But that language really creates kind of like this ability to open doors into things if you choose to go deeper, right? So I'm just, he sent me off in that direction. I apologize for
That's okay.
Going down that cul-de-sac off our main drive. But I still think the effectivity and change is something that you can put in the link, because if an ECO is the reason that this part is being swapped out, then its original pointing to a thing with a quantity of 0 is because of that ECO. And this other part, which is a quantity of 1, is being brought in because of that same ECO. And that's how you swap a part, right? Still one BOM, right? In my mind.
Right.
Okay.
So that's going to lead into another thing, which is one of the questions in the chat. But just before that, I had a question for Rob, because Rob, okay, well, Patrick, you can jump in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to add one thing onto what Brian says. And I think that's an important point of maintaining reasoning. And I know, in the DMs that this group has, and we, there's some other, likely suspects who are all in that conversation, right? Maintaining reasoning is a hugely valuable thing that is not well done currently. It could be, but maintaining a link back to the reason why the change occurred, and
Right.
what was all the thinking and such like. I think that's a valuable thing. Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to emphasize that.
That's
point,
okay.
Brian.
It does actually tie into my question because Rob and I have been at a couple of conferences together, and you recall Dr. Youssef Hushman's thing about multiple sources of truth, single source of change. Do you want to talk about that for a second, Rob? Because I know you were on some of those conversations.
I mean, change is a great topic because, as we know, products aren't static. Well, it depends where you're, which perspective you've got on the BOM. But let's say the most simple form of change is someone makes a change to the design, and then at some point that cascades down through the different departments, and then that change, goes into manufacturing. But then who needs to be aware of it, etc., etc. But then when you think about if you're making lots of discrete products and you start making changes, then you need to be able to control which changes have been on which products, especially where maintenance is critical. And I know that I gave a talk recently about change control in defense. And there was a famous example with the Harrier aircraft where I think it was a Harrier, sorry, it was during the Gulf War that they made so many, they lost control of the changes that they were making to the aircraft, so that actually of the fleet only 10% could fly at any one time because the upgrades that they wanted to do weren't compatible. And so they had to then re-baseline everything in order to then do the next generation of upgrades. So yeah, sorry, Michael, I forgot the original question now.
I thought I was bad, bro.
That's the problem with bombing.
Yeah. Well, we're heading into the last quarter of an hour. I had a question from Moose Out Ketsty. I hope I said that right. And I think all of us should throw in our comment because it's sort of about, I mean, Brian started and Oleg also sort of leaned us that way because we were talking about PLM as a language. I've already written in another article about PLM as code, kind of like we've had this transformation of infrastructure from all these crazy diagrams and rational rows to just Kubernetes and YAML files. So how do we see the role of AI and automation handling traditional BOM stuff, right? How in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see it change. It absolutely cannot stay exactly the same, right? Something's going to move. So what kind of shift will there be? I would also throw in, Sadia's comment last year from Microsoft that SaaS is dead, which is true. It's problematic too because everybody took 10 years to get there, right? From 2010 to now, everybody was like, got to be on the cloud, and suddenly like, oh, but well, maybe, the whole model has changed. So how do you guys feel about that? How we've all have a certain gravitas, having done this same thing for so long. How do you guys see us moving? I want to start with Oleg. Go for it.
All right. So I think what is the important thing to move forward is to start with openness, because that's something that solves the human problem first. So we originated from a place that everyone wants to hold the data as close as possible. But as Rob said, in the organization, the human factor and the openness coming together. So I think if we resolve this and we will be able to deliver, I mean, not speaking about technology for the moment, I'm speaking mostly about behavior. If we will be able to deliver solution and the business model behind this that allows the companies to work on the shared data, that would be an amazing thing. Because back for the last 30 years, I'm in this business, you sell enterprise solution, you hold the data, sell applications. Now that's becoming a problem today, especially when people start hiring agents, AI agents, and not people. How do you sell seats? Did you think about this? Oh, that's a problem. You can't sell more seats because companies are hiring agents. Something is broken. A lot of people are now concerned about this. And if we will not solve a problem of data communication, and we will not solve a business problem. That's the most important thing, because otherwise, like if there is no business, everything collapses. So, my best prediction on what can happen here is that we will learn as a telecom companies to stop charging for the long distance calls and start charging for data. I'm not saying it will be exactly like this, but there is a lot of conversations that we have now with customers and prospects about how to make it in the way so we allow the companies to grow and to connect and not to be restricted by the business models. I think this is the most important thing, because this business allows to go and it will unlock many things. And then I think the second thing is to discover how to use all these amazing technologies that we experience for the last 20 years and 30 years, and to use it for the BOM management. Because keep in mind, the 4 or 5 top companies that managing BOMs and enterprise today, I will quote Martin Eigner that said, those are technologies from 90s. So it's all amazing things with technologies from 90s. That's my take.
So Patrick, do you think we're going to end up with outcome-based pricing?
Well, first, let me say, okay, so first, before I come down negative on this, let me say I'm no Luddite. My PhD dissertation from 2004, I developed what I call a digital reliability twin, and I use neural networks to improve throughput in this digital reliability twin. So that was based on objective data. I think when we talk about AI, I think we need to start breaking up AI into specific use cases. So I see some value in AI in terms of drug development and a variety of other things, but I don't think there's a viable business model for LLMs. ChatGPT had $11 billion in revenue on $34 billion of expense. They've committed to $1 trillion of expense, and yet they're losing they're losing much more money. So, and we're not currently paying for this. So in any event, I'm definitely keeping my powder dry on the LLM standpoint. I think, and I'll add one more thing and then we can move on, and in PLM, we use PLM to design dangerous products. They're planes, they're trains, they're automobiles, they're guns. I've got 3 members of the military in my classes here. And what we see in things like the 737 MAX, which we talked about, and the GM ignition switch, and VW Dieselgate, and all these scandalous failures, is there are weak signals within the culture who recognize the fact that these catastrophes are likely, but it's difficult for the culture to raise those issues up. And when we move into stochastic mimicry, which emphasizes the most likely response rather than a weak signal response, we're simply building an IT infrastructure which will increase the likelihood of catastrophic failures. So first, I don't think there's a business model for LLMs and in general, and I think it's a particularly bad use of LLMs in the design of products which can kill people.
Thank you very much, Patrick. That was depressing.
Yeah. You should take my class.
I just don't remember who had the hand up first, Rob or
Rob
Brian.
did. Rob did.
Okay, because I did want to. Well, okay, go ahead, Rob, and then I did want to kind of
Quick
modify the question before giving it to Brian, and then Jonathan can close. Go ahead.
So I think there's change and change impact is going to be a great place to apply AI, because I think AI can figure out the potential impacts better than humans can, especially across an enterprise where many different things could be affected. Then you've also got the really good examples of people like Colab, where they're information at the time they need it. For example, they're developing a part and you give them the requirements, you give them any lessons learned and all that type of information. it's when they're doing the work, so that they can make the smartest decisions. So I think there are some really great examples in engineering that are actually happening today that will make a difference.
Thank you, Rob. Brian, you were already talking about engineering and BOMs in terms of nouns and verbs. And so do you think if we have the right guardrails in place, we have, my Maimonides agent that's always doubting what the other ones are saying. Do you think we could get to the point where PLM could become a language where your dream of one BOM to rule them all with these powerful relationships, which are all driven by agents in order to keep the bounds and keep the thing moving? Do you think that's where we're going?
Well, I think, and let's go back to how BOMs get created from CAD, right? I believe that in the CAD world, if you can define a screw characteristically, like Rob was saying, the requirements of it, it should be able to generate the 3D from the screws that are already in its learning tables, right? And that learnedness becomes something that manifests a screw that's longer than any of the other ones or has a different thread count based on a spec. So that CAD geometry, which could help people doing the fixtures and the mold design and whatever else they do when they create a screw in manufacturing. So that, I think, is something that AI will hit. Another thing, and this goes to Patrick's point of the 737 and the issues of validating, is everything here that is necessary? And is there something we should be aware of and continue to check, right? Like if you look at the suspension of a plane landing, the shocks have, unbelievable pressure on them. So the logic in AI should be able to say, check the shocks 3 times a year, right? Because you're going to have so many landings. You want to make sure that the grommets and whatever the hell else is in there. So that, I think, is something that AI will do, which is design validation. But the third thing, I think, is being able to, in the BOM world, say, I want to templatize a wide range of products that have similarity, whether it's housing. Like you look at the fan above my head, you've got blades, you've got housing, you've got light and so on, that you should be able to auto-gen 95% of what a design should be or what a BOM should be, bringing in all of the components, and the engineer would then finish it off. And then you click a button and it validates, did I forget something? And then it goes out and does whatever. So I think AI has position within this world. I also think, to your point or question, Mike, is that you could design a language. This goes back to the ingredients of a recipe, but I don't think you're ever going to take the fan above my head and describe it semantically. But you can take a recipe and semantically describe it so that the batches follow that operational step, and you can log the batches. This goes back into pharmaceutical or consumer packaged goods or whatever, right? So in that area, I think that language and semantic BOM development could exist. AI could help them, but I don't think in CP or retail or whatever else there's a way to do that, because I can't even think of the logic of the language that's better than the BOM in its presentation, right? I'm done.
Jonathan, we've got a couple of minutes to wrap up.
Yeah.
There's actually a question in the chat about causal sources of truth, but I think all of us can look at the chat afterwards. And thank you, by the way, everybody listening, and for the folks that did comment, we really appreciate that. So go ahead, Jonathan.
I want to come back to the question that we're all answering here, and I also want to throw in one more topic before we wrap up today. So coming back to that question, I think AI is a real challenge in the PLM space, and I'm going to bring it back to the bill of materials explicitly and say I think one of the challenges that companies are going to see is that the big companies are going to have A, the budgets, and B, the data to do what they want to do with AI on their product definition, right? And it's not going to be LLMs. It's going to be a different kind of model, but an intelligence that's trained on their data to understand how to operate on BOMs, product definitions, all these things. Yeah. So I think that's coming, but it's going to be tough for the smaller companies for a couple of reasons. Budgets and data again, right? So a specific example on BOMs. I know tons of companies that when they create a bill of material, they've got alternate parts, and I've seen at least 5 different ways to represent an alternate part compared with the primary part. Okay, so what is the model that's going to get trained eventually to work on BOMs? Not an LLM, but this BOM model. How is it going to interpret that? our data is not semantically rich. One company is different from another, and we're going to misinterpret, and people are going to put the wrong part in, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think we have to watch for that and see what does that mean about the difference between big companies and little companies and how they can use AI in their product development. Okay, so that's my answer. The topic I wanted to get into, but we won't have time today. Let's not forget about bills of material. Another thing that I think is really important, variance, right? We talked about MBSE earlier a little bit, and I think that ties into the whole picture. But all of these structures that we have, EBOM, MBOM, whatever, comes back to Brion's point about one overloaded structure. When you try to have variation, but you've got multiple copies of your definition of your product, now it's really tricky, right? And it's something important for people to think about when they're trying to decide how to represent BOMs in their company.
Yeah, and I think that overloading the link solves that problem without duplicating content, religiously. By the way, Oleg, anything that's an agent should have a ID to get in, and that would be licensed. You can't have agents floating around penetrating your product without having license to penetrate your product. So regardless of whether it's a human or it's an agent, it should have a user ID that enables it to go in, and there should not be 7 agents look like one. There should be 7 agents, each having a license to do what it is they're going to do.
But the trouble is,
congratulations. You're in the group of people on the software vendors now that's saying that we need to start selling seats per AI agent.
Yeah, you got it.
I'm not saying.
Well, I did that
but this
with
PTC. This is the group, okay?
I did that at PTC, where Flex Connect is the way you connect systems, and each one has to have a license.
And
Each
then we have
system you want
1,000
to
agents, and we need to sell to each of them
Right.
licenses. It's a great model. I just want to see who will buy it.
Yeah.
Well, you got
Rob had his hand up.
I think that's a legacy hand.
that's a legacy hand.
We-
It's not part of his. It's not part of his current anatomy.
That's a legacy hand. Okay.
Let's wrap it up. What do you want? 60 second or less than 30-second BOM conclusion from all of us, Michael?
A bomb conclusion, yeah. Okay, go. Okay, let's, go ahead. You start. We'll go Rob, Patrick, Oleg, Jonathan, Brian. I'll say we're out. Go.
Okay.
30
So
seconds.
My advice to companies is, when you're thinking about the BOM, don't start with the BOM type, but start with your business, start with the people in the business, and then go to the information that needs to flow around the business, the right information at the right time to get the right stuff done, and then build your BOM solution from there.
Boom. Brian, Patrick.
I'm really pushing the idea of we need a digital thread as the foundation of the information model, and then the various X BOMs simply become views into that thread, purpose-built views into that thread.
Thanks, Brian. Oh, sorry, Patrick. Oleg?
How'd you know I was doing that?
I saw the strings. I saw you pulling a string and I saw his mouth open. Oleg?
Yes, I'm always saying to all companies, the BOMs is the lifeblood of your business. It's how you operate your business and what problems you want to say. So if you have a bottleneck, you need to solve it. So we always start and come into companies and saying what problems you want to solve instead of what BOMs you want to build. So start with the problem, and then what model and what process and what tools will fit it. And yeah, that's the BOM in the middle, but it's something that enables your business and enables your communication between people.
Boom. Mr. Jonathan.
Yeah, I think my advice is get your data model right? And I don't mean technical, because your technology might change under the hood over time, and it should, but get your logical data model right. Think about the business you're in, how to support what you want to do, like everybody else is saying, but also think about where you want to be in 5, 10, 15 years, right? Nobody thought about product as a service 20 years ago, or few people did. But now, if you think about it, well, your data model might look a little different to the things you want to track to get into that. So try to think about where you want to go and get your data model right.
Boom. Or bomb. And now, Brian, closing comment,
So,
30 seconds.
Yep. So when I say that you should be able to represent any BOM by overloading the link, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be trimming that BOM based on the MBOM traversal and pushing it to ERP. Okay. You will be pushing it out to different systems for them to do what they do. And Michael brought it up as, each system has its own purpose, and you can't forget the fact that they exist. But I believe that BOMs can be made by intelligently creating a link reference that has contextual applicability. Should I travel to the child? Depending on how I'm looking at the BOM, I may or I may not, right? So
Thank you, Brian.
27.6 seconds.
Wow, that's amazing, man. Thank you, everybody. We have not come up with another topic, and I'm sure we will. We will take suggestions in the chat. Thank you once again for everybody joining. Please look out for next week. I have a AI Across the Product Lifecycle podcast with a couple of awesome startups. And by the way, the startups are also not sleeping on the BOM topic. I have at least 3 or 4 that are very uniquely using that. I think, Jonathan, you've talked to a lot of them too. Thank you for attending this episode. We had a great time. I think we took a very boring topic and made it rather interesting. I appreciate that. And again, thanks to Jonathan for joining our group. I think we might welcome him back. What do you think, guys? We thumbs up?
Yeah, sounds like
It all depends on this, Jonathan.
Yeah, get the mugs, bribes, all these bribes. Jeez, you guys.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun.
All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next episode, everybody.
Take care.